Get ready for a take.
Mark it. Action.
Come on, guys.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the University of Lincoln's Live Lounge. And tonight's session will be on personal statements. So we are really excited to try and support students when they are coming to apply for university. I'm delighted that we have got Katie, who is part of the student recruitment team, joining us tonight, who will be able to answer and go through how to write a personal statement to ensure you get the places that you really are looking forward to. So if we could just introduce Katie.
Hello.
Hi, Katie, and welcome to tonight. And we're really pleased to do a session like this because we know it's really important for students at this current time of year. What we would like to do is make it as interactive as possible for the audience. So if you have questions and you'd like to pose any questions, please put them in the comments and we will try and pick those up for you as we move on. And also what's really interesting would be to see where people are located from. So are you in the UK or all over the place, which would be really good for us to know. So Katie, I suppose the first question we'd ask is, what is a personal statement?
Okay, so a personal statement is obviously something that students will write as part of their application to university through the UCAS process. It's a really important document. It's something that will showcase all of their talents and skills and ambitions and desires to study their subjects of choice. It's something that students find quite stressful to write, and sessions like this are really useful just to help answer any questions or queries that they may have. Essentially, it is 4,000 characters, including spaces, and it's 47 lines of text.
So you just said there that some students find this quite stressful when they're doing that, and I know we all talk to lots of students and they kind of worry a little bit at the start of that. So is there a kind of structure you could advise people to follow that would help them get started?
Yeah, absolutely. One important thing to remember is it must be a balance of both academic skills but also wider skills as well, so softer skills, so responsibilities and things that they've done outside of school and college, so not just focusing on the subjects. That's really important to remember. The structure should always start really with an introduction to the subject they've chosen and why, so talk about their passions and their aims and ambitions, and then go on to talk about the wider skills that they have, thinking of things such as leadership, communication and teamwork, and any work experience that they've done that's relevant as well. Now, it's really important that students take time to research the courses that they wish to apply for, because there might be some requirements that they must show evidence of in that personal statement. And one thing I'd really encourage students to do is, if they're unsure, always contact universities and ask them to help with their personal statement and to research those modules they'll be studying. They should also, in their structure, make sure that they mention those modules and talk about the ones they're really excited about studying, and also talk about other things that they've done that are related to their subject of choice. So it could be, for example, podcasts they've listened to, or certain authors that they read, or it could even be people that have inspired them to study that subject. And then when it comes to closing the personal statement, to talk about their career ambitions and where they hope their degree will take them to. This is often something that students can forget, but it's really important to include that, because universities like to see that you've really researched the degree and you can see where it's going to take you in the future.
Thanks. And I said, one of the, you pointed to there about what we should include in a personal statement, and sometimes students find it difficult because they say, I'm not sure what to write, or what, you know, I don't have anything interesting to put. So have you got a couple of examples of maybe where someone has done some work experience and how they can use that, or if they play in a team and what sort of skills they could talk about with that?
Absolutely. So if you've got work experience that's relevant to the degree that you've chosen to do, it's really important that you talk about how that will relate to your course. So for example, if you're applying to do something within health and social, so a nursing or midwifery degree or paramedic science, and you've had work experience maybe in a nursing home or maybe even in a youth centre, you can talk about how you've built relationships with people, you're able to emphasize with those people, and you're able to develop those types of transferable skills. But also any work experience is really important, because there's general skills such as time management, organizational skills as well, that they can bring across to their degrees of choice.
So on the topic of work experience, it's been really tough over the last few years for everybody, and maybe getting some work experience has been really difficult for some students in some cases. How can you advise them on, can you put something down that they're going to do something or they're trying to get work experience? Would that help them?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the research, students often see that there's certain requirements for work experience or certain skills, and they may think, oh, well, I haven't quite got that, I haven't been able to. And certainly students who've been impacted by COVID. There's always opportunities online for work experience that they could undertake, and also other opportunities that they can look to do in the future. And they can mention those on their personal statement, that they've taken those steps and they're going to undertake those opportunities as well. So I would encourage students not to panic if they feel that they haven't quite got everything yet. They can certainly look towards gaining those particular skills and experiences. And that's why research into the degrees are really important, because that's going to show them exactly what they need, and then they can take that across into their personal statement.
So in terms of submitting the statement, and I know you just talked a few minutes ago about the sort of 4,000 characters. Can you just explain to people what happens if they go over the 4,000 characters, or if they maybe look at a cut and paste from another website or anything? How does that process work?
Okay, so it's really important that students edit and create their personal statement on Word rather than directly on the UCAS form. One thing to monitor is the word count and the use of characters, because some students will copy and paste it across onto UCAS, and it will just take off the last sentence or two if you have gone over. So do check when you transfer it that you have met that limit and haven't gone over. If you have gone over on writing it and you have to edit it, that can be the most difficult part, because obviously you've taken time to craft your personal statement, and you really want it to be perfect, and now you're having to take things out. This is why it's really important to share your personal statement with people who know you best, who can help you edit and take things out and trim it down so you get it to that perfect length. And that isn't easy. One of the tips I always share with students is to read out the personal statement to people who know you best, and really ask them, when you're reading it out, does it reflect me? Is it authentic? Are there any bits that I can trim down? And one thing to bear in mind is to avoid writing lists. So quite often students want to put everything they've done into the personal statement, and quite rightly so. They're very proud of their achievements, and that can just make it go over the character limit. So to try and pick out 2 or 3 really good examples of work experience or responsibilities held inside school or college and outside school and college, and focus on 2 or 3 in depth, rather than try and list everything you've achieved.
So you talked about getting the right audience to read your personal statement. Do you think it's important sometimes to have different people read your statement, or can that confuse matters? What's your advice on who checks? Do they talk to their teachers, or do they talk to their parents? I know you talked about people knowing you really well. So
Absolutely.
what would the advice be for that?
So teachers obviously know their students really well, heads of sixth form or heads of college, as well as pastoral mentors as well as the fantastic work that careers teams and careers leaders do in schools and colleges. And I would encourage students to take advantage of those people, because they've been through the process many times and have probably read many, many personal statements. So to get feedback from lots of different people is great in one way, because you're getting that input of expertise, but it can be confusing and it can be overwhelming as well. And so it's really important that when you do get feedback from people, remember it's your personal statement and you're the one who has to have ownership of it. So do take on their feedback, make sure you get your spelling, punctuation and grammar checked, etc. But also when you have conflicting views, take them on board, but then when you submit your personal statement, remember it's your decision, you have the final say.
So on the submitting, is it, I've had students talk to me in the past and say, do they get a benefit from submitting it early or on the deadline? What's your advice to people when it comes to submitting? I believe that the deadline date is the 25th of January. So what's your advice towards that?
So my advice is, obviously the UCAS deadline is the 25th of January for equal consideration. So therefore every application that's sent in before that deadline will be considered exactly the same regardless of when it was sent. But bear in mind that academic references have to be written in order for your application to be submitted to the university. Schools and colleges will set their own internal deadlines, and it's for that purpose. It's to ensure that those academic references, which are often a collaboration between the people that know the student best, can be written and submitted in good time. For me, as a previous head of sixth form, I always encourage my students to submit before Christmas because it gets it out of the way. There are January exams looming on the horizon, and you really want your personal statement just done in the bag and you can submit it. And then you'll start getting offers from universities, which is the most exciting part of the UCAS process. And that can often be uplifting, especially in the dark winter months of January and February. So I would encourage students to submit it early and to make sure that you just get that big job done.
Brilliant. And with lots of students, they do a variety of subjects. So do they need to link all of their subjects that they're currently studying to the course they're applying for?
No, not necessarily. And I think sometimes students fall into the trap of trying to do that. And that can be really immensely difficult, especially if you're applying for a niche degree or a degree that's somewhat diversion away from your A-level or your BTEC choices. So I think if their links are there, absolutely, you can focus on those. So, for example, I had a student who wanted to study law and specialise in human rights law, and obviously that wasn't going to be applicable to all of her A-levels. So she really focused on what subjects she'd studied and which modules fitted and supported her degree choice. And I think that's the recommendation, is really to do a little bit of analysis, a little bit of mind mapping, looking at the degree in depth, and then identifying from your A-levels or BTECs exactly how they link. And if there isn't a link, don't try and force it.
And in terms of the links, I'm a sports person. So if I put in my personal statement, I play badminton, I presume that's not a great point to put in a personal statement. What sort of things, if I were to put that in as an example, what would you say I could draw on from let's take a sporting point of view for now and see how we can draw that out?
Absolutely. Well, if you play badminton, then obviously you may be part of a team, you're part of a group, part of a club. You might have a responsibility within that club. You can show how it shows perseverance, determination. You're obviously interested in the sport and the rules, etc. And there's lots you can draw from those examples that would be relevant to your degree, and also relevant to other degrees as well, because you're showing that you've got organisation, communication skills, and you can pick up any leadership experience you've got from that example as well.
So I suppose the point you're trying to say is that when you make a statement, see if you can add more to it, or if you've expanded it well enough to draw on things that we might not really think about.
Yeah, absolutely. So one technique that we use is the ABC approach. So the A stands for activity. So there you're talking about exactly what it is you've done, or an example of an achievement. And then the B is the benefit. So what have you learned from there? And really focus on transferable skills. And then the C is how those transferable skills relate to the course, to the degree that you've chosen. And that's a really good model to take for any examples that you want to include of things you've achieved or things you've done in or outside of school and college.
So we're moving very quickly into December, and it's not far away, the deadline. And I know from my previous teaching there might be some students there that haven't even started putting pen to paper. And I know you talked about this at the start of tonight. What about those students that are kind of going, oh, I just don't, that's it, I've not started, have I made a mistake, should I have started earlier? What would be your advice to someone that's just literally not started anything at the moment? Okay,
so first thing is not to panic at all. There's always people that get ahead of the game. And you've still got plenty of time. So I would advise the first thing to do is not to open a Word document and just look at a blank screen and not know what to write. There's lots of support out there, and make sure you do your research into your degree, because that will help, and make sure you reach out to your team at the school and college that you attend to ask them for advice as well. And then my next advice is to do a mind map. So to move the laptop computer away, big piece of paper, and start mind mapping a plan for your personal statement. You won't include it all, but it gets everything out onto a piece of paper that you can start to pick off the best bits to include. On that mind map, start with the course first of all. So think about the modules that you'll be studying, look at the universities, look at their requirements. Are they asking for certain things in the application, certain work experience, for example? Make sure you note that down. Second thing is to look at your traits and the skills that you have and the qualities that you have. Now, this is often quite difficult for students to do, because if I was to ask students to write down everything that they couldn't do or that was negative about them, they'll probably find that much easier than writing positive things. So it's really good to do this with a friend or someone who knows you very well, who'll be able to help you write down all those skills and qualities and attributes that you have. And then the third thing is obviously to talk about work experience and to write down any work experience, part-time jobs, volunteering opportunities that they've undertaken, anything like that that they can include, but then try to expand using the ABC method. What was the benefit and how does it relate to the course? And then the last one is often the fun one, and that's achievement. So to list absolutely everything that they've achieved in school or college or outside of school and college, and just list them all. And then when you get to your personal statement and you start to think about what do I include, you can look at this mind map and start to pick off the things that you think are absolutely relevant to your application.
So just in a little bit of summary of the sort of first sort of 10 minutes that we've been talking, or 15 minutes, what makes a good personal statement? When you've read them in the past, in your experience, what makes them stand out? What's the bit where you go, absolutely, that's really, really good?
Oh, the standout ones are the ones where the passion comes through and the real desire to undertake 3 years or 4 years or whatever years of study into this particular subject. And it's the ones where you can see that a student really cares about this discipline that they want to undertake. And you can see that they've already started to take steps to really make this subject part of their lives. So, for example, the student I mentioned before about human rights and law, she spoke in her personal statement about setting up an Amnesty International group at school, where she ran weekly sessions for younger students to get involved on raising awareness of human rights issues. So this was obviously a real passion of hers, and you can see that in her personal statement, that she'd taken those extra steps. So it's really about a good personal statement is one where you can see a credible application from someone who really cares deeply about this particular subject and wants to move it forward. Also, a good personal statement will have the careers links and will have a mention of aspirations of where they want their degree to take them. And as I mentioned at the start, quite often that's overlooked by students and they don't always include that careers link. And I think that's really important, especially for universities, to see that this student has really applied their thinking to where their degree is going to take them in the future.
And we've actually, while you were talking, it's great, we've had our first question that's cropped up, and it's from Lewis Clark, and it says, do I have to include all of my A-level subjects in my personal statement if the course isn't directly relevant?
I think we touched upon this earlier, and no, you don't. So quite often students try to shoehorn all of their subjects in, and it's not necessarily if they aren't directly relevant, but you can talk about particular skills you've learned from studying those subjects. But if you are going on a different route and a different pathway and your A-level subjects don't all fit, then it's absolutely fine not to include them all. And remember, and this is something that often comes up, universities will already know the A-levels or BTEC qualifications or T-levels that you're studying, because they've already assessed your application at this stage. If they're reading your personal statement, they know. And quite often students can waste characters in their personal statement because they'll say, I'm currently studying XYZ and these are my predicted grades. That's a waste of characters. Don't include those. It's a common mistake that students make. The universities already know what you're studying, so they're already aware. It's better to use those characters to really talk about yourself and what you've done and what you've achieved and what you want to go on to achieve.
So thank you to Lewis, and also I'd like to encourage any more questions if people would have anything that's on their mind. We have a few minutes remaining, so we can go through any of those. So one thing you just touched on there was maybe students getting things wrong. So if we looked at I suppose, what are some of the issues that crop up with personal statements? What do people sometimes do wrong that actually are easily avoidable?
I think obviously that one we can include in your subjects and your grades. You don't need to, because it's just taking characters out. One of the other things is to say quite a cliche line, you know, for as long as I can remember, from the age of 3, from the age of 5, or you know, those come up quite often. And I have generally read from the age of 3, I've always wanted to be a forensic scientist. Yes, you can have passion for your subject, and you may have genuinely wanted to pursue this particular career or degree for some time, but to really back that up with some evidence of what you've done with that passion makes it more meaningful. Otherwise, it's just words, and it doesn't really tell the university's admissions team much about you at all. And also other ones that quite often we see are students who think it's an academic essay. It's not an academic essay at all. Although you're applying to a university, you are applying for a course that's going to teach you, and you become an academic. So it's better to have a personal statement that's a very honest, true and authentic reflection of yourself, that's not trying to be academic, but actually goes into detail on you as a person, and not definition of terms or definition of the industry or an explanation of what the industry is like. You don't need to do that. Focus on you.
And we've got a couple more questions. So we'll take the question from Frank. And it says, does paragraphing matter within the personal statement? I'm struggling with the line count.
Okay, this is a really simple answer. No, take the paragraphs out, reduce the line count, reduce the spaces that you've used. When you submit it on UCAS, the paragraphs will go anyway, and the universities will use their own editing software. So you don't need to worry about paragraphs. Remove them.
Fantastic. And hello to Olivia as well. Would you be able to make amendments to my personal statement once I've submitted it?
Okay, so yes and no. Once you've submitted it to your school or college, they can send it back to you. So if you send it and you think, oh, goodness me, I want to change it, I'm not happy, I want it back. If they haven't submitted it to UCAS yet, you can request it to be sent back. And indeed, your personal statement will be checked by your school and college just to make sure it's fine. If the school and college aren't happy with it, they will resubmit it to you anyway. Once it's gone to UCAS, however, that's it. You can't change your personal statement. You can, however, contact the universities directly that you've applied to. And if there's something you want to add, or something you feel you haven't mentioned, or you feel there's an error on your personal statement that you wish to be addressed, you can contact the universities directly. You will need to quote your UCAS ID.
Fantastic. And we've just had one just crop up from Meta. We've got a couple now, which is good. When talk about work experience, what can I talk about and jobs I have, even if they don't link to the course but show the skills I've gained? I think you talked about this a little bit earlier, but do you want to just quickly refresh some of those key skills that people can pull out from work experience?
Yes, absolutely, Macy. Please do talk about your work experience. It's so valued and it's so important. It might not directly link to the course, but it's still worthy of including, because you can talk about all the different transferable skills that are so important when applying for universities. So remember, universities aren't just interested in your academic side. They want to know more about you and what you can bring to the university as well. So key ones are time management, organisation, communication and leadership. And I'm sure in your work experience you've had examples of those, or you've had training in those, and you can absolutely include it and talk about what you've learned from it and how that can relate to your course. So I'd really encourage you to do so, and it's great that you've got that to be able to share.
And Jessica's brought up an important point, and it's something that we were going to talk about just in a couple of minutes, so we'll address it now. For some courses, are we allowed to send personal statements directly to Lincoln, different from our UCAS personal statements, one that is tailored to the course? I think with that question, and maybe if you could just talk a little bit about if a student's applying for different courses that are very different. So for instance, if they're applying for geography and then a completely different subject area.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jess, you can also always contact a university that you've applied to. That's absolutely fine if you wish to. But make sure you quote your student ID, because remember that universities get hundreds of applications and for some course in the thousands. So make sure you quote that. In terms of if you have different choices of degree in, I think you were saying, and having a personal statement. So there is a limitation in that you can only have one personal statement. So if you are having different number of courses that you wish to apply for, writing your personal statement is even trickier, because you're going to have to try within that personal statement to explain your wish for these different courses. And the universities, remember, are blind to your other choices, so they will not know that you've applied for different course, and it can be a little bit tricky. What I always advise students to do is really focus and really think about and reflect through your research on which course you are more happy in taking on. And remember, you can always change your mind and change your course and change your direction. So nothing's set in stone, but I think it does overcomplicate the picture. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it does make the personal statement writing very difficult and challenging if you have really different degree choices that you want to pursue. But Jess, absolutely, if you want to contact universities directly, you can.
And it seems to be a little bit of a theme, and I'm wondering if this is the people are worrying a little bit about the work experience element because they might not have been able to get one. So we've got Hazy who said, if I don't have any work experience, is there anything else I should mention in its place?
Yes, Hazy, absolutely. And you're not alone. So don't feel worried that you don't have any work experience. I know it's been very difficult for young people to get it with the pandemic, etc. So please don't worry. You're absolutely not on your own. Hazy, what I think you could do, though, you could look online for any opportunities. There are many, many online opportunities for work experience, even if it's just a day in a life of a particular role that you might be interested in or relevant to your degree. There's also lots of online courses as well that are available for free that you could pursue. Include those on your personal statement as well to show your commitment to this subject area. And there's also podcasts, etc. you can listen to. So university is really keen to see what you've done in addition to your studies, because of course, remember, everybody goes to school and college and gets the qualifications. So anything you can do in addition would be absolutely fantastic. And please also remember to volunteer and look for volunteering opportunities as well out there in your local community, as well as being a wonderful thing to do, of course, to give back. It's also really useful for your personal statements as well, to demonstrate those skills and commitments to developing yourself.
I am mindful that we've got just a couple of minutes left. And I think one point that I'd just like to say is that we do have an email that people can get in contact with us at Education Liaison. It's just coming on the screen now, because there are students, as we all know from being in the classroom, that might not want to ask a question publicly on a session like this. So please feel free to send any questions in to us, and we will get one of the designated team to answer that and get back to you as quick as possible. So if we're looking in summary, Katie, you've given us some unbelievable points to help get started and to really delve deeper into a personal statement. Can you just sum up, I suppose, what makes the best personal statement? What are the key elements that, if people were just to take away 2 or 3 things about their personal statement, what would you say would be from this evening?
Okay, the most important thing is to make it honest, truthful, and an authentic reflection of everything that you are proud of and everything that you can offer a university. And you've got to think of the bottom line. At the end of the day, the personal statement that you write must reflect 2 things. Number 1, why should a university choose you? And number 2, why you've chosen university. And if you've communicated those 2 things to your 5 choices, then you've got a really good personal statement, and no doubt you'll get 5 offers.
I couldn't think of a better way to sign off this evening, with the fact that you've said about the passion and getting everything through and research. So I just want to say thank you, Katie, for all your insights to that. It's been really interesting to help people get started. And as I've said all the way through, if anybody would like to contact us, please drop us an email, get in contact with the university, and we will endeavour to get through and get you a response that will help you with your personal statements. So I think from this evening, I just want to say thank you very much. Thank you, Katie, for joining us.
No problem. Good luck, everyone.
We will speak to some people soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you.